Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, you always end up back in the same place, stuck, frustrated, failing? What if I told you it's not bad luck, lack of effort, or even fear? It's your mind, not consciously, but subconsciously, you're hypnotizing yourself to fail. Let's jump right into it. Most people think hypnosis is something weird, like a stage show or mind control. But what if I told you hypnosis is something that you do or we do every single day? It's where you tell yourself a belief over and over and over again to the point that you believe it's a true statement. And if that true statement happens to be, I'm a failure, I can't do it, this isn't for me, then what happens is you start to believe that to be true. And every time you attempt to try to do something, that hypnosis comes in, that belief system that you tell yourself, that self-sabotage comes in. And you keep telling yourself, I can't do it. This isn't for me. I'm not good enough. I'm not ready yet. But all that is your storytelling mechanism, your self-sabotaging mechanism, your hypnosis, where you keep telling yourself something so much you believe it. For example, in schools, there are many, many experiments, you can Google this, where a teacher would come in, or a scientist would come in, and they would give all the kids a test, the exact same test. But some kids, they would say, you're very smart, you're good at math. And other kids, they would say, you're not good at math. And then they would do the tests, and all the kids that they said were good at math ended up being better at math. Not because they are better at math, because that belief, because they believed what the scientist or the teacher was telling them. And that was the same with the kids. The kids that were told that they weren't good at math, they ended up doing poorly at math because they believed that they aren't good at math. And this is done in so many different experiments, you can Google it. And really what it comes down to is self-sabotage and people just believing something that's not true. So these things you keep telling yourself, like when you say, I'm not good enough, if I try, I'm just gonna fail, they become programs that run in your background, in the background of your mind, in the background of your system. And every time you attempt to do something, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's it. So every time you tell yourself, or you have this negative reinforcement of what you believe you are, it affects your ability to do it. It affects your self-esteem. It affects who you are as a man. So these are things that we need to start to understand as men and find ways to replace the negative, bad stories where you can't do it with stories of things where you did do it. You've trained your mind to keep you in the familiar, even if the familiar is failure. So why? Because the brain craves safety. And anything unfamiliar to a brain that's stuck in fear-based thinking is a problem. So that's why as you start to progress in life, and as you start to realize that maybe you're a little stuck, you need to start catching yourself and finding out when your brain is telling you that you can't do something, even if it's as small as parallel parking. There's so many little things that throughout the day we just feel like we can't do because our brain's telling us that we can't do it, because our mind's telling us that we can't do it. That's fear-based, basically fear-based mind control. You're basically hypnotizing yourself to be a failure. Now here's the thing. Another thing that happens to people is another thing that happens to people is, when I think about failures, they start comparing themselves to other people. So they go on social media and they start to compare their lives to other people. So for example, or they start to compare themselves to big famous football stars or basketball stars. So somebody might compare themselves to, say, like LeBron James. And you're like, well, I'll never be able to be a basketball player and rich like LeBron James, because that's not your normal. You can't, everybody's normal is different. So for example, LeBron James might be really good at basketball, but say you're a mechanic and let's say he started to measure his his esteem, his self-esteem on whether or not he could fix a car, then by how you judge things, he would be a failure because he can't fix a car because he's not a mechanic. So what we need to do is we need to start understanding that that everybody's kind of got this, what I would say, like an inferiority complex, because people think that they can't do something. And so what happens is people start to overcompensate, and then their inferiority complex turns into a superiority complex, and now it's just one complex after the other. And what people have to understand is that, number one, you're not inferior. Number two, you're not superior. Number three, you're you. That's it. So the key is to embrace you and find out and determine what your strengths are based on who you are as a person, and start to make progress towards those things, because you're absolutely completely unique. There is nobody in the world like you. So you're going to have a different set of skills that you were born with, that you need to hone and craft. That's the most important thing I think there is to take away from this, is understanding that if you can hypnotize yourself for failure, you can hypnotize yourself for success. B, don't compare yourself to anybody but yourself. You know, when you look online and you see these little clips of somebody on Facebook or somebody on Instagram driving a Maserati in the United Emirates, and you're like, oh man, I could never have a life like that. It's like, first of all, do you even want to have a life like that? Do you even want to have a Maserati? Like, is that even what you want in life? So and really what it comes down to, before you even can start figuring out what you want to do with your life, it starts with your self-image. What does your ideal self look like? Are you able to picture that? Are you able to sit down and construct in your mind, just as if you're looking at a movie screen and you're watching the movie screen and you're thinking about it in your mind, what would your ideal life look like? What would it feel like? What would it sound like? Where would you live? What would your house look like? What would your employment look like? Or what would your calling in life look like? What would you be doing to make a living? And imagine that life, and make sure you have that image in your mind, and don't have this out of whack image of something you can never achieve. Because it's not about this magical thinking that, oh, I can believe anything and I'll succeed. I can become LeBron James, or I can become an astronaut. That's not how it works. You need to be realistic with yourself. You need to figure out kind of what your skill set is, what you love to do, what you can hone your craft on, and start to think about what kind of a life can you build around that, and what's your ideal life look like, and then start making the little steps to get there. But that's what it comes down to. So when I think about and I watch people, and you see so many people that have hypnotized themselves into failure without even realizing it, it's too bad, because everybody has an opportunity to truly become something in this world. Nobody was born just to be a commoner, as they say. Nobody here is common. Everybody here was born with the ability to succeed at something, to become who they're meant to be, and to bring their original thought and their original feelings and their original way of life and into this world and show everybody and show it, man. That's the reality. But people don't see themselves as unique, but you are unique. There is nobody like you. You're the only person that's ever going to be born like you. Nobody's going to be born like you ever again. That's it. You're the only version. So quit thinking that and comparing yourself to all these other people of what you can't be, and start thinking about what you can be, and start thinking about that positive self-image of what you're going to do and how you're going to get there, and start doing it and start working at it. But it starts with, first and foremost, believing that you can get there. It starts with you coming up with that self-image of what you want to be and focusing on that every single day of your life. And then start picturing yourself in that world and walk in this world like you're already there. And the ideas will start to pour in, and you'll start to figure out what to do. This is the most important thing. This is exactly what I do. And here I am, living my best life one of my best lives in Toronto. So it's great. And I'll never spend another winter in a cold place ever again. Well, maybe if I want to, or I choose to, if there's some other reason I'm not aware of, but that's it, man. But it starts with that. So understand how these negative stories you got to start replacing negative stories with stories of W's where you succeeded. You need to recognize the negative stories, but it all starts with your mindset. It all starts with your self-image. There's also, you can also Google this, but there's lots of doctors that do plastic surgery that have told this same story. Like, for example, let's say this person's got a horrible bump on their nose or a scar on their face, and the doctor meets them and says, I'm having trouble with my self-esteem, my self-worth. I want to get rid of this scar. I want to get rid of this bump. And the doctor, okay, yeah, no problem. I'll get rid of it. So they get rid of the bump, or they get rid of the scar, and the person looks in the mirror and they still think that they're just the same amount of ugly, even though the scar is gone, even though the bump's gone. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you physically do to yourself. So you can get in shape, you can get the scar removed, but if you don't have a positive self-image before that happens, it's not going to do anything for you. Everything starts with a positive self-image, with you thinking about what you want to be and where you want to be, where you want to get to, and keeping that image in your mind and working towards it. That's where it starts. That's what I do. So that's it. That's what I want to talk about today. I'm Matt Ross. I'm the Lone Wolf.